All right, everybody. Hello, everybody in attendance, and to our speakers. Thank you all for being here, taking some time out of your day to be able to showcase your experiences and storytelling of your individual lives in the service and any other things that you be able to share with our veterans across our nation. So this is pretty exciting for me. So yeah, no, we'll go ahead and start. First of all, I want to introduce myself first as the host, just in case anyone doesn't know me yet or already knows me. My name is Julio Barron. I'm one of the college success coaches from the American Indian College Fund. And also, I'm a proud veteran of the United States Army. So yeah, no, that's just a little bit about me. And then I'm calling from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So what I want each speaker to kind of tell about each individually is just your name, where you're coming from, what branch you served in, and then any other information you kind of want to share out to the audience as well. So don't want to pick around, so I'll let anyone volunteer first. Go ahead.
I'll
Okay,
go first. Yep.
go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
all right. I'll go first. My name's King. I'm a second year medical student at North Dakota University School of Medicine. I'm originally from North Dakota, from Turtle Mountain Reservation, and I have 14 years of experience in the Army National Guard. I've had 12 in North Dakota and then 2 years during graduate school where I went down to Texas. If anybody's from Texas, I know there's a big animosity about what school you went to. I went to Lubbock. I went there for school. I'm sure there's probably some other fans out there, but I really enjoyed my experience. But I came back to North Dakota to practice medicine and continuing to serve. I'm currently a second lieutenant in the state medical detachment. So before that, I had promoted all the way up to a staff sergeant and was one of the senior, well, almost senior NCO enlisted medical medics of our state. So I'm here as a medical semi-expert, and I hope I can answer your questions. And I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, King. All right. Who's next?
I'll go ahead and go. So my name's Juan Perez. I'm the director of admissions at Salish Kootenai College on the Flathead Reservation in Montana. I'm enrolled Klamath Modoc, and I was in the Army 1985 to 1992, and served as a combat medic in the Army, and during Desert Storm was stationed in Landstuhl, Germany. And at the time it was Second General Hospital, and we provided medical support for all the casualties from Kuwait and Iraq. They flew them up to the air base there in Landstuhl, and they brought them up to our hospital. And so, and I've been at Salish Kootenai College as a full-time employee for 23 years.
Thank you, Juan.
I'll go, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Tyrone Robinson. I served 2 stints in the National Guard. I served for 8 years, making rank of E5 as a heavy equipment operator attached to a combat engineer unit. I went into basic training in 1991 and got to witness a lot of reserve and guard guys who thought they were going guard and reserve, who ended up going over to the sandbox. I was not one of those. Went back to my unit. I made it to E5 and decided to get out of the service. I re-enlisted in after 9/11 for a 2-year stint as a combat medic attached to an infantry unit. I did not get a slot in that time to go to school, had my first kid, and then left the service. Went into private sales for a number of years. And then after I left the private field, I kind of wanted to go back and serve, particularly minority kids, Native American kids, urban kids. In Montana, I grew up in Great Falls, Montana. My father was he was career Air Force, 26 years, retired as a Chief Master Sergeant. And so I left that field. Now I work full time for the Department of Military Affairs for for a military alternative high school. I'm the admissions counselor for Western Montana and the recruiter. And I also work part-time for the VA doing tribal outreach to Native American veterans on the Confederated and Salish Kootenai tribes. My commitment to the tribes is that my wife is a first descendant of the tribe, and my children have 2 daughters who are second descendants. And that's kind of my story.
Thank you, Ty. We'll go with BJ Rainbow.
Good afternoon. My name is BJ Rainbow. I'm currently the Vice President of Academics over here in formerly known as Fort Berthold Community College, newly known as Nuita Hidatsa Sapnish College. I served in the Marine Corps from 2000 2004, got to E4, went to Operation Iraqi Freedom 1 in 03. I have a wife of, it'll be next month, 23 years. We have 2 children, Brianne, who's going to be graduating this December with her bachelor's in biology with a pre-health emphasis. And then our baby boy, Bryson, is going to be a senior, or is a senior here at Newtown High School. So thankful to be on the call, thankful to each and every one of you that served, and just excited to be here.
Thank you. And then lastly, we'll go with Dean. I think you're on mute, Dean. There you go.
I was really going for it too. So,
There you go.
hey guys, hey man, it's great to see Juan Perez, man. It's great to see. It's been so many years, man. And I always appreciated your leadership and everything, man. I got a great start in the tribal college with AHEC and everything, and Juan was one of those great mentors. And BJ is a good brother of mine also. So, yeah, my name is Dean Dufresne, born and raised on the Spirit Lake Nation Reservation. I'm an enrolled member of Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians, Marine Corps veteran, served from 95 to 99. I like to sound salty and say that I served back in the 1900s. So that's my thing. And I served a couple years with 1st Battalion, 1st Marines in Camp Pendleton, Camp Horno. Deployed once to the Middle East. Relative peace in the world during that time, 97, 98 time frame, or that little sliver of peacetime. So it was kind of more of a float. But so I got back out of the infantry battalion, and I was given some orders on a little bit of a special detail, I guess you call it, where I was detailed out to the Marine Corps base Camp Pendleton's, the commanding general's suite there, where I served under the chief of staff for the commanding general there. And that kind of duty is the type of duty that really makes you think about staying in longer. But I was really close to re-enlisting. I decided to roll my dice, take a chance on myself and get out. And that's where I entered into the tribal college system. I went back home to Spirit Lake. Little Hoop Community College there was where I got my start into college, which I can't say enough about the tribal college system. It's such a great resource for people getting like me. I was a little scared of college because I wasn't a great high school student. So I thought that automatically translated, to that I just wasn't a good student in general. But I was able to dip my toe into college with tribal college, and I got involved with AHEC, the student government and such. And that's where I met Juan. And I just I was a little bit armed with a little bit more discipline then after doing some time in the Marine Corps. So college was a lot easier for me at that point. I graduated from the University of North Dakota with a teaching degree, went back to the res for a while, coached a lot of sports. And then I moved back up to California and where my sons were, and I got into nonprofit veterans advocacy there. So I extensive background in working with homeless veterans, with housing resources, employment resources, mental health, suicide prevention, a lot of those things. And just in the last couple of years, I've really been on my heart to turn my focus to my fellow Native veterans to do advocacy there, because I've sadly I've been looking around and trying to see who's who in leadership in as far as Native veteran advocacy goes, and I gotta say there's just not a lot. There's not a lot of people to turn to. So I'm 46 now, and I'm at that age where it's like, hey, if it's not there, then go out and start making things happen. So that's what I do now. I do a lot of that. I have a small business called Native Eco Solutions. Do government grants and contracts consultation. We do marketing services, project management, stuff like that. So I'm loving life right now, living in Bemidji, Minnesota. My wife Angela is the CEO at Seven Clans Casinos up here. We have two beautiful kids that are 8 years old and 7 years old. And it's good to be close to home again and back around family, and good to be connected with you all today. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Dean, and thank you all to all the panelists that were able to give an introduction. Just to share a little bit about yourself and everything, and hopefully, through all the questions, throughout this discussion we're gonna have, we'll probably bring up some things, that you want to share with others, or just kind of have some fun, with this discussion with all the veterans here in attendance. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say these questions out loud, but also put them in the chat as well, just as a reminder. So I'm gonna do that real quick. So the first one is, what made you enlist into the military services? Was there a certain event or person that influenced you to join? Please elaborate. And I'm putting that on the chat, and then we'll go ahead with anyone that wants to volunteer right now, if you're ready.
So I'll go ahead and go. So my brother joined in 1984, the year before I did. And so when I turned 17, actually the day I turned 17, I called the recruiter. He came over and my mom signed papers so I could join. But yeah, it was kind of my brother. I just followed him, but I have a grandpa that's a World War II veteran. And so, always growing up when I was younger, when he was alive, just we would visit at times, and I have some pictures of him from in the military, and so it's just kind of, I think, in our DNA from our grandpa to serve. And so, but I kind of followed my older brother Silas, who joined the year before I did.
Thank you.
I can hop on there. I'll go next. So what made me enlist in the service, being from a military family, my dad served, a couple of uncles served, his father served, my brother served, I served, but I wasn't really on that path until I was making some poor decisions in my life. I had gotten a football scholarship to Carroll College, and when I was in high school, I didn't really play school. I just played football. This was back in the 80s when you could get away with that. And so I had absolutely no study skills, no discipline as far as that goes. And my first semester at Carroll, I got a 1.35 GPA, lost my scholarship. And also, I had some medical issues where I had 2 detached retinas from contact. So football was kind of not going to be in my future. They had me in some kind of jock degree, like communications, which was not going to really serve me. And I had more interest in other things at this time. I was 17 when I graduated. I was 17 for the first 2 weeks at college, and I just partied. It was horrible. I was at a point in my life where I was either going to go to jail or end up on the side of the road somewhere, and finally decided to go into the military. And I chose the Army National Guard because my father was in the Air Force. And you know, the skills and everything that I got from that. I had some college, so I got some rank going in, which allowed me to get some bonuses, some GI Bill. So through my time, my service, I worked full time in management at UPS, put myself through college. It took me about 10 years to get my bachelor's degree, and did not use that degree for a number of years, but I'm glad that I did. So it was probably just my father begging me to save my own life to go into the service, and you know, just seeing what kind of life he had and continues to have from his 30 years of service. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I'll follow up on that, Ty, because my story might be a little bit similar. I also was about basketball. I never was probably going to even go to college, and then I ended up getting a basketball scholarship to Lake Region State College. I played in high school. I don't know, you might, BJ Rainbow, you might know Damon Brady. So I played for him a little bit. I wanted to transfer to Fort Totten, but my mom wouldn't let me, so I graduated from CANDU, and then ended up getting a scholarship to Lake Region, played there, went to a national tournament, went and walked on at Minot State, played there for 1.5 years, but I didn't finish my last semester due to some political kind of, I guess you could say, drama. So I didn't finish my last semester, and basically my life fell apart. I didn't know who I was. I literally, my whole life was revolved around basketball. So it was going down the wrong path. And I always wanted to serve. I don't know why. It was always there. My grandpa, he served in World War II as well, but we never really talked about it. He never told us stories, was never really talked about in our family. It was just kind of known that he was a Marine, and that was about it. So I looked into joining, except I needed to get my mom's approval, only more for personal reasons, because we had lost my brother when I was my first semester of college. So I wanted to make sure that she was emotionally and okay with me enlisting in case something had happened to me at that time. And it took me 3 months to finally convince her, like, this is really what I want to do. It's going to help me get back on the foundation that I need to get where I want to go in life. And I'm a second-year medical student now, so I might be the youngest panelist here, but that's okay. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm hoping that I'll be able to serve another 14 years in my career. We'll see what the National Guard offers me, as well as sitting in the med debt. I mean, as a provider one day, a pretty easy breezy job, as long as I can maintain balance between service and providing the service in the community that I decide to work in. So that is my story.
You King. All right, so if we don't have anything else for that question, we'll go on to the next one. So this one is kind of just more of like, you know, the family aspect of it. So how did your family feel at the time of service about your decision being in the military or just entering into the military itself? So I'll put that into the chat.
I would say, so my dad served in the Marine Corps from 82 to 86. My uncle was in the Navy. Then I have some grandfathers that were in the Air Force and the Army. Everybody thought that my dad was kind of a huge factor in the sense of forcing me to enlist, but because he was, you know, I was raised pretty strict. I'm an only child, so a lot of my wife especially, and a lot of my friends are like, "Oh, you're an only child, so you get babied a lot," and by my mom and my aunties and my grandmas, yes, but not by my dad. You know, when he said no, it wasn't like, well, how come? It was just no was no, and you just kept it moving. But I wanted to join. My family really supported me. My wife at the beginning was kind of like, I don't want you to enlist, but I was already in the delayed entry program at that time, so I was already going. And I mean, they've done nothing but support. And now where I live over here in Fort Berthold, I just joined last year the VFW post 9061, and there's a lot of you know, Dean was just over here day and a half ago here. But they're very supportive. The community where I live in right now is very supportive of veterans, and they really take care of us. Actually, tonight they're having a Marine Corps dinner at 6 tonight here. And they're really good at feeding us. I'll tell you that. It's definitely hard to turn down a meal or just have a little bit. But a lot of my family really supports me. You know, my daughter was talking about joining and enlisting. And I just, you know, I was just honest with her. I said, well, I'll support you if you do, or if you don't, you know, but I definitely didn't sugarcoat anything about how things are, especially in the Marine Corps. Because I told her I can't speak for, you know, one of her uncles joined the Air Force and stuff, but I just told her I can't speak for the other services, but, you know, I can definitely tell you myself, and I told her your grandpa can tell you about, you know, how the differences we had in our generations when we served. But, you know, our family is definitely huge at support and is always, you know, I felt it when I was in Iraq, when I was in boot camp, you know, I felt their prayers, everything. So that's what I continue to tell our young veterans, you know, if they're enlisting or they want to get in, you'll feel that those prayers and those thoughts. So
Thank you for sharing that.
I'd
So-
add to that too, just about the family thing. I had a brother that was in the Army before me, and had some uncles that served and whatnot. So it was a little bit in the family history there. And I was one of those guys that was just in drastic need of some direction, some discipline. And my dad knew. My dad's a pretty strict disciplinarian, but even he kind of gave up on trying to put the reins on me, just because I was just constantly doing whatever I wanted to do. But he did say, the ultimatum came where he's like, hey, you're running around like you're a grown adult and everything like that. Your 18th birthday's coming up here soon. I'm telling you what, you better have a plan, because it ain't going to be here laying around here. And I was like, Roger that, Dad. So, and then I had also some peer pressure came in too. I had some good friends that were, hey, they were committed to colleges and they're doing stuff. And I was kind of knew deep down that I was kind of meant for something bigger than being, you know, kind of just being running around the res. And so, because I was a really poor student, not because I was dumb, it's just because I was disengaged. I wasn't engaged in the process. I would rather talk to girls, make my buddies laugh. You know, I towed that line just enough to stay eligible for sports, and that was it. Once I was eligible and once the sport was over, I would drop off and I would just do whatever I felt like doing. So I was really in need of discipline, and my parents, I was really fortunate to have a couple cousins that were in the Marine Corps. One was in the infantry, and one was in the he was in the air wing. Well, the one who came in back home from the infantry, he was kind of really shut in. You know, once he got back, he didn't talk a lot. He drank a lot, partied a lot, stuff like that. But he wasn't very vocal. And my cousin that came back from the air wing, he came back with his dress blues on recruiter's assistance. He had a new ride. And then he explained to me that they have different jobs in the Marine Corps than just the infantry. Well, we didn't know. All I knew about the Marines was Full Metal Jacket, you know, and stuff like that you see on TV. So I was like, damn, I don't know if I could, you know, I don't know if I'm that gung ho. But he said, well, he's like, man, there's every job you can think of is in the Marine Corps. I was like, really? Because he explained his job, which was kind of an administrative type of job. He said, yeah, it's like basically a 9-to-5 job. Plus I get a 2-hour lunch where I get to go PT for an hour, where he went and played hoops. Then he went to lunch for an hour. I said, that in the Marine Corps, that there's no way. There's no way that's a thing in the Marine Corps. He said, yeah, that's just a thing. They have all the jobs. So that was a big influence for me. And I said, okay, well, that doesn't sound too terribly bad. It's like, okay. So then I kind of, once I heard about that and I talked to a recruiter a little bit, I was like, all right, all right, now I got a plan of attack. You know, I needed something to get me out of that environment. I knew that about myself at 17. At least I could say I was a little bit self-reflective to know I needed that stuff, and anything around I was doing in that environment wasn't going to give it to me. So I had to do something drastic. Nothing more drastic than joining the Corps. So I joined that was my plan A. And my parents they're like, where do I sign? Because I was 17 when I joined the delayed entry program. So of course your parents have to sign you away, right? So my parents were like, yep, good plan, son. Boom, here's this. There you go, dude. Go have at it. Of course, my mom, she was all crying and everything when I left, but she was like, yeah, son, yep, do it, go do it. So but they're very super supportive and very proud of my time served and the fact that I did it. They were very, very supportive. So that's my story.
Thank you for sharing.
Well,
So
and I think, so I was gonna say just kind of the same thing, you know. My mom had to sign the papers for me because I was 17, but you know, she was definitely proud that her boys had joined the military just like her dad, and so she was proud of that. And when my unit got called up during Desert Storm, my brother actually felt kind of guilty because he's an older brother, and he was like, well, my younger brother shouldn't be going to war, I should be going to war, you know. So I know my older brother felt a little guilty about that, and you know, but he was the first one there when I returned. And you know, and he's you know, my brother, my sister has been very proud of that, of the service. And then my family, my wife and my kids, you know, they seem extremely proud too, and that I went and served. And you know, not many people will sign their name on that dotted line to, you know, and to possibly give their life up for the country. And so, you know, whenever we've had conversations or have talked about you know, things, you know, definitely my wife and kids have been pretty proud of the service. And you know, back when I went in, my wife was pretty young, so and we didn't meet till I was well out of the military. But you know, we actually have a picture of me in basic training, and my son, he put on some fatigues, and because they say my son looks a lot like me, and so we did a side by side. And yeah, people were pretty surprised and how much, you know, he looked like. So yeah, you know, I think the support never had any negative for my service.
So because I left and went in, I have two different stories. You know, the first story I kind of went into, you know, oh boy, my dad, they were super happy when I made that decision. When I re-enlisted, now I'm married and my wife was pregnant. 9/11 happens. And, you know, as soon as I saw those planes hit the tower, I'm like, I'm re-enlisting, you know, just because it's just like somebody had said earlier, that patriotism, that wanting to serve, you know, that was just, when you come from a military family, it's like ingrained in you. And so she wasn't too happy about the enlistment. You know, it caused some problems for me. And had I gotten my slot and then been deployed, she told me she was going to divorce me. I still was going to get my slot and do what I was going to do, but it just didn't work out. And then I got out, and you know, we ended up getting divorced anyway. So you know, but still, overall, you know, my kids, like I have 4 kids. My son's 14. I have a 17-year-old daughter. I have a 8-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they're very proud. You know, my son was a soldier for Halloween for the first 11 years of his life, you know, and my daughter, you know, my 9-year-old, you know, she's kind of following in those footsteps as well. And then another thing is that the community that I lived in for a long time, which is just south of us, Missoula, Montana is not very supportive of the military, just as culturally. But when I moved up here on the reservation, there is a very, very strong supportive culture for the Native veterans. My wife's grandfather was he's part of a Gold Star family. He lost his brother in Vietnam, and the VFW and all that thing is really, really big up here. So, once you move up here and you have those veteran plates, you get a little bit more respect driving around on the reservation and stuff up here, and you feel it more. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so I think everyone answered that one. If not, let me know. But the next one, let's just kind of change the mood of the conversation. So I kind of want to know some funny stories about, basic training or boot camp. And I know it's kind of like said differently from every different branch. So I just kind of want to know if anyone wants to share anything from that aspect.
I have just a real quick one. So in basic, you do a lot of things, and seems like I was always hungry in basic because you're so active and stuff. And so I had taken a cookie from the mess hall after one of the meals, and I was chewing it. I was trying to be sneaky, and we were outside, and I had some, and I was chewing it, and this drill sergeant came up from behind and saw me eating something, and right away, what are you eating, Perez? And so I told him a cookie, and he's like, well, how come? I was like, because I was hungry, drill sergeant. And he just kind of, he kept his smile, tried to fight back the smile, and shook his head. And it wasn't even my drill sergeant. It was another platoon's drill sergeant. So he sent me to mine, and I had to go tell my drill sergeant what I had done. And my drill sergeant just kind of laughed, shook his head. And it was kind of towards the end of basic training. So, they weren't as strict as at the beginning, but I still had to do 50 push-ups because I was eating that cookie, and at the end of basic training, 50 push-ups wasn't nothing. So, but yeah, I still remember that, I just, they just shake their head and it was like, dummy.
Thank you for sharing that. And just, I wanted to share like something really quick about that. I think I felt that hunger all the time. So we were always hungry. I think even if we were fed 3 times a day and they used to give us like snack bars for more energy and protein, it was still not enough. So I was always hungry. So just want to put that out there.
I know in Marine Corps boot camp, we had, when you have, sometimes you have the, guys that need to lose weight or overweight and whatnot. And the drill instructors are super like ninjas all over them, hawking their every move. And the same kind of thing happened where one of our guys, he took some candy that he wasn't supposed to have. And I don't know how they could have found it. It was like Jolly Ranchers. I don't know how they could have found or detected it, but like I said, somehow they're just super hyper focused on everything, every move you make, and they caught him. But in the Marine Corps, when somebody gets busted like that, we all pay for it. So we all got tore up for that one guy's trying to steal some Jolly Ranchers. Well, that was probably his second offense too, because I think he took some stuff from the chow hall, took like a hard-boiled egg and got busted with that or something too. Because those guys are on a strict diet typically. It's like a hard-boiled egg and maybe a piece of toast and that's it. And they're watching the rest of us eat our, scrambled eggs or whatever. So he decided to snatch some extra stuff, and they caught him, man. They kept like 100% success rate on catching you, man.
That was my story. So in Full Metal Jacket that Dean mentioned, Pyle gets a donut in there, right? So I was a diet recruit. I went in at like 198, and I was supposed to be 184 or something like that for my height. And then the funny thing was, again, is we didn't have our own drill instructors. We had some other drill instructors take us to chow one day. And so at the beginning of boot camp, we're supposed to get these tags that we wear, right? either if you don't get as much food, or if you get the other one, the opposite viewpoint was the double rations, the guys that were super petite. But then our drill instructors never made us wear them. So I had it in my left breast pocket, and it was a breakfast. And so sure enough, it had to be a damn donut. I got everything. So like Juan says, like, you know, and Julio, you know, you're always hungry. So here I got everything, and just so happened that one day I didn't eat everything. And so I could have got away with it if I'd have just ate the donut and nobody would have seen I was bringing my tray back. Bringing my tray back, and one of the other DIs was like, Rainbow, what the hell is that on your plate? And he knew I was a diet recruit. And so, ain't you a diet recruit? And that whole thing played out. And then we went to Knowledge that morning. And then he's like, I'm going to tell your senior. And it's almost like the same effect that, you know, I'm going to tell your dad, wait till he gets home. And so you're like, son of a. And so all morning, man, I was like super anxiety, super stressed. And I was like, well, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. And sure enough, we go back to the squad bay from Knowledge. DIs yell, you know, form up for chow. So they run outside. And then the senior is like, recruit Rainbow. And so, man, I had to go report to him. And so just like Dean said, everybody pays. And so what happened was they had the whole platoon come back in and get by their racks. And they had me in the push-up position. And they put this little tiny jelly bean. They had me in my push-up position straight like that. And then they put it like right there. And he's like, okay. And he's like, you can make all their pain stop by just eating the jelly bean. And so, of course, you had some guys like, eat it, Rainbow, eat it. And then other guys are like, F no, Rainbow, don't eat it. And he's like, but if you eat it, then you breach your contract. And I was like, I didn't want it. I didn't eat it. And he thrashed me hardcore. They did lifted up the rack 6 inches, 2 inches, 4 inches. And they did that whole thing for about 20 minutes. And then they had the platoon go outside. I'm still in a push-up position. Had me run outside, run around the platoon twice, run back into the squad bay. And as my platoon went to chow for lunch, I got trashed hardcore that whole about 45 to an hour and a half. And you know what, when they show like sea turtles, when they, you know, lay their eggs and they come out of the water and they have those 3 things, that's how it looked, because I had sweat pouring off my chin, running down my hands, and I kept moving my hands to back up from the drill instructor's duty hut. And yeah, I never did have another donut after that.
A jelly donut.
Yeah, and to this day, people still don't believe me, like that I wasn't gonna eat the donut, and they're like, bullshit, you were gonna eat it. And I was like, I wasn't. So
You know, my funny experience was just, it was a little bit different because when I went in, I was 21. So, you know, like I dropped out of college and kind of lost my way for a couple of years. And by the time I enlisted, I was 21, and I went in as a E2. And I don't know if you can tell from the picture, but I am very hairy, and I have been ever since I hit puberty. And so my father gave me a lot of good advice about basic training. He basically said, you don't want them to know you're there. You know, the best compliment you can get is when one of your drill sergeants comes to you 3/4, halfway through and asks who you are. I was that guy by the time I got there, but I probably shaved 3 times a day on average. And it didn't matter where we were. We could be over at the training facility. We could be wherever. And it'd be like, Private Robinson, did you shave today? Sergeant, yes, Sergeant. Go shave. And double time. So wherever we were, I'd have to run back to the barracks, and I'm in there shaving this way and this way and this way, and just trying to get everything I possibly can so I could run back and join formation. So I think I might have set the record for the amount of times that somebody shaved in a day. That's basically.
I think my favorite memory is so I stand out as a female. I'm big, I'm tall, I'm strong. And then they found out I was an athlete, and it was kind of all over from there. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of screwed. So I, in the Army, I think they must have taken some advice from the Marines, because we did certain phases, and I went to basic training in 09. Sorry, 010. I enlisted in 09. I didn't get to basic training until 2010. So you got different phases. First phase, everybody, if one person messes up, we all get smoked. And smoking is just a new way of saying we're going to get you in shape, whatever means possible. Now we're in a different army now, because you can't use certain terms and you can't speak to soldiers in a certain way now. We'll see how that treats us in the future, but that's a different story. So we have morning, we go to our PT, we come back, we get ready for the day, and we're going out and we do another count. So everybody counts off. All right, did about 5 times. We're one person missing. Don't know where this person is. And next thing you know, we find her passed out in the bathroom, pants down on the shitter. She was so exhausted, and we didn't know where she was. It probably was like 45 minutes before we figured out who it was, and then another however long just to find her. So that was kind of a scary moment, because at first, you're like, oh, okay, not a big deal. We just miscounted, because count off, and how many times that just goes wrong. Then kind of panic mode comes on, and then when drill sergeants start to get panic mode, then it was starting to get serious. Like, did we just have a soldier go AWOL in the middle of basic training, or somebody kidnapped? We didn't know. Yeah, just sleeping. Her head was on the stall and pants down, and we found her and got her back out there. So that was a very interesting rest of the day. So, and then my second story is an AIT, because obviously the athlete, I could never ever stay under the radar. I decided to try to hide gum in formation, and we were going to be doing some PT, and I said, okay, I'll just put it in. I won't chew it. I'll get by. And that didn't work either. Private King, are you really chewing gum in my formation? And I said, oh, F. Well, that turned into me getting a leadership position for the rest of AIT. So I was voluntold to be the platoon guide for the rest of AIT. And I tell you what, being 22 and with a lot of 18-year-olds, they did not like me, and I did not like that position, but I made it through and graduated. I started off as a heavy equipment operator. So you have all these, engineers, and mostly a male dominated profession. And then you have me, elder person, female, telling them what to do. 2 of my not favorite times is definitely that time.
Hey, Julio.
Yes.
So just real quick, I have one more that I mentioned to my wife, and she's so we were having inspection, barracks inspection, and I was a guidon bearer, so I carried our platoon flag. So I had my own room. While we were the last platoon in the company for inspection, and as I think you guys can all relate to, you're also pretty tired, and it kind of goes, with the story we just heard. You're kind of tired, and so I sat down and leaned against the wall, and before the company commander came, the XO, the second lieutenant, came through, and he was a pretty big, intimidating man, especially when you're 17 years old. And he didn't wake me up. He looked in, and then he left. So the guys across the hall came over, woke me up, and they said, Lieutenant Little just saw you sleeping. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I'm in Fort Dix, New Jersey in the summertime, so it's hot and humid. And I'm just standing there now, just sweating, and I'm just like, it's gonna happen. And my drill sergeant came in and asked, Perez, what were you doing? And so I wasn't gonna lie, and He said, "You're mine when we're done." You know, just kind of intimidating. And so inspection happened. We were there. I was waiting. And some of the guys down the hall came up and they're like, they called me and they said, you know, come here, come look, come. And we went down to the drill sergeant's office and his door was just cracked open and he was sitting in his chair, feet on his desk, sleeping. So I told everyone, just be quiet, don't wake him up. But yeah, that was probably worse than the cookie for me. Thank you.
Thank you for all the stories. These were really fun to kind of hear, and also to the audience members. Now you know what goes on in the military. Just kidding. But yeah, no, thank you all. So for the next question that I have, this one is a interesting one right here. Is there any advice you would give to individuals transitioning from the military life to the civilian life? That's the question.
Yes. One thing I kind of learned as a guy who, you know, I was pretty knowledgeable about the transition services from the military. That was actually my job. I did separations in the Marine Corps. So I counseled everybody on their, you know, benefits and things like that getting out. And I did the DD-214s also. So I was pretty knowledgeable about that kind of stuff. But even when I got out, I didn't even know, I didn't connect with the VA. I didn't file a claim. I didn't know. I mean, basically what I knew was the GI Bill. You know, that was the big thing. And of course, as you transition out, it's all taking a drink through the fire hose analogy, whatever it is, with all the information. But what I always, you know, kind of say to people is to try to be your own best advocate, because I think we put a lot on people like at the VA, like they're supposed to take care of everything for us. They're supposed to know everything. And they're supposed to like drop everything and focus all on us and give us all the services and benefits, right? It doesn't play out that way in real life. So I always try to say to people like, you know, do the work yourself in a lot of ways. If you find a good case manager at the VA or a counselor or something like that, cling on to them, great. But even with that, you know, do the follow-up with them, follow up on the email about the claim or whatever the case may be. Your odds of getting stuff done just increase tremendously when you take the bull by the horn, so to speak, right? So that's one piece of advice to me is don't really count on anybody else to handle your business as it regards to benefits, services, access to resources and things of that nature. So that's my tidbit.
I would say on this kind of the same token, ask questions. You know, I always tell our students that, you know, if you don't know, you don't know. And if I don't know as an administrator what's going on with the student, because the student was too scared to come and talk to me, you know, I have open door policy, things like that. And that was one thing that I experienced was going right into school after getting out of the Marine Corps and waiting for my money to come in or my scholarship or whatever it was. And then I think there's also a different part is like to be open-minded as well, because sometimes there's a perception that, oh, well, you know, Dean was in the military, he was in the Marine Corps, so he should know, you know, and I think us as veterans, it's sometimes it gets double and triple hard to ask for help or ask questions. You know, it still kind of troubles me at times being an administrator, but you know, it's definitely humbling, but I won't know unless I ask the question. So that's why I always tell folks to ask questions.
Yeah, and I would, you know, I would kind of, this is kind of in the same vein, but you know, I didn't, besides using the GI Bill, I mean, when you're in the service, you don't really think about those benefits, or you're in the National Guard, you just don't think about them. You don't, you know, you're just doing your time, and then, you know, you're done. And so really the only benefit that I knew about and took advantage of was my GI Bill. I didn't use a VA home loan until 15 years later. I had bought a home before, not even knowing I had those benefits. And so, you know, those benefits also changed. So from the time I got out, 15, 20 years later, there's new legislation passed, new bills passed that gave National Guard members more benefits. And so, partly that was part of my motivation to work for the VA and work for tribal veterans, because tribal veterans serve at the highest per capita of any population in the United States. And they experience all of the worst adverse effects of that service at a higher rate. PTSD, alcoholism, suicide, all those things. And, there's this age group of Vietnam vets and older who are very familiar and understand their rights and their benefits, and they are good at advocating for themselves. But there's this younger group of veterans, 30 to 50, who just don't engage the VA. They just, they don't know that they have those benefits. We live in a very rural environment. There's not a lot of, ready resources. And so I would just encourage, anybody who's thinking about serving or who has served to contact your VA representatives and find out what you are entitled to. Because, somebody said earlier, there's not a lot of people that will sign their name on that dotted line to give their life for their country. And it doesn't matter what job you had, cook, all the way up to whatever, you deserve those benefits. And it took me a long time to feel like I deserve those benefits. And it's only now in my 50s that I'm understanding more that, about those benefits and the access that I have to them in learning and also in teaching the veterans that I work with. Thank you.
And I think just real quick on a kind of a different note, it's still taking advantage of benefits. Hey, Home Depot gives discounts to veterans. Ace up in Polson, by where I live, Ace Hardware gives us like a 10% discount. Take advantage of those. And my wife has always encouraged me to, I usually never do. My wife's encouraged me to sign up for those, and because then she gets it too if she signs in or use my phone number and stuff. So yeah, take advantage of those, any of those kind of things. I mean, you've earned it, you deserve it.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that as well. I think we'll have room for one more question before Q&A, and if no one has any questions in the audience, we'll continue on with just a couple fun ones to go over with. But this one right here is let's see, oops. Is there anything you wish civilians understood about the military service? Yeah, I'll put that in the chat.
I would say that somebody touched on this before, but the vast nature of jobs and career fields that you can go into in the military. I talked to a lot of kids in recruiting for the military school who have aspirations of going into the military, and they just want all they have in their mind is platoon and rah go in with the gun, and and that's not all what the military is about. There's social workers, doctors, psychiatrists. It's a broad field that will give you lots of experience for life.
Thank you for sharing that.
So I guess I would like for civilians to, our climate in the US is just weird right now, and we get so many people who it's my right, and it's like, well, it's your right, because there's certain people, again, who have stepped up to the plate, and some of those people who cry if they feel their rights and their freedom is taken away, haven't put their lives on the line or haven't signed, the contract. And, it's like, don't just throw that out there, saying it's my right, it's my freedom, and you're trying to take away my freedom. And well, no one's trying to take it away, because there's folks like us on this panel who stepped up to make sure that they have those freedoms. And I think more people need to understand that yeah, you may have some freedoms, but it's come at an expense. We have families who have lost loved ones in wars, and there's veterans who kind of struggle day in and day out because of PTS, and I usually don't put D on it, the disorder, because they weren't born with it, so I usually just try and say PTS. But I just want, I think people need to understand that for me, I'm allowed to be in Bozeman, Montana, watching my daughter play volleyball because of the service of people. And there's wars going on overseas, and I'm sure they wish they could have the luxuries that we have right now that we get to enjoy today. So I guess that's what I'd like for civilians to kind of understand, and be a little bit more respectful of what we do have, and be more appreciative of what we have.
Right, thank you for that. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I would, I wrote a couple things down about, it's almost like an understanding within an understanding, right? So it's one thing to serve in a military, and then to serve deeper into one branch, and then to serve as a Native American Marine, right? I spoke to some high school kids earlier today, after we raised flags, and I told them that that we serve nations within a nation, and so an identity is definitely part of that. And there's a lot of perceptions of the ancestors that we come from didn't just go around and fight. Like, to be a warrior, to be a Kichita in our language, wasn't just about going and fighting. It was about providing and protecting. The fighting was the very last thing, right? And so there's some of the things that I wish that civilians understood was the camaraderie, the unity. When you serve and you suffer with people and you sacrifice, how it brings you closer together. And sometimes in our work environments, I know I can speak for here at where I work at the tribal college, we have about 75 full-time staff, faculty, and administrators. And sometimes morale is definitely an issue. And but it's also like, because we call ourselves a family. I know that I met Juan some years ago as well, and the tribal colleges as well are kind of considered that, to be as a family, and we don't just do one thing, we do what we can, right, to help our students. And so there's a lot of correlations to serving in the military and things like that. But that's one thing that I kind of, just recently we had an individual on our staff that wanted to harm themselves, and they opened up to us in one of our committees. And so that was a very powerful and a very heavy meeting, but it was something that needed to happen. And so it's those things that sometimes don't get translated easily, or and then there's just some things that civilians won't understand between military folks. So
I just have a little bit to add. I had a conversation with one of my little cousins, and he scored ridiculously high on the ASVAB, and I said, "Ooh, go intelligence." He's like, "I don't want to join the military." I'm like, but you're a history buff. And he like reads military books and he loves reading about it. He's like, but I don't actually want to do it. And I said, well, why not? And his response was, well, all the veterans are homeless and they treat them like crap. And I said, yeah, we could do a better job of taking care of our veterans and the people that did serve and the trauma that comes out with war and everything like that. And I said, but not everybody has come out with the unspoken, right? I'm wearing this shirt because, right, not all wounds are visible. I'm a super advocate of the for veterans to go get the mental help because they were forced not to for many years. And as a healthcare provider, I want to tell everybody that is in the service or that will serve that that's not the culture anymore. We are providing the services, we are giving the care, we are opening the doors for that healing to take place. Is it too far? Did we wait too long for this to happen? Maybe, but we're doing something about it now. And the whole mission 22 of, we release 22 veterans a day, where I want to see that number lowered. It would be wonderful we could have that number 0. So I didn't really know how to answer him right away. And I said, well, we could do a better job, but also that's a perception of what certain entities have put out in the media. I said, if you give me some time, I said, I'll be able to put more things together for you. And I said, I want you to research a little bit more on your own. Just not the negative that you see. There are veterans that are getting the help that they need. We are changing the environment. And what about if you go in intelligence and you can help prevent and save lives from being lost, and then go in with a different mentality than most go in thinking of Rambo and guns, shooting, kill. Because I remember the mindset of going into basic training of, okay, I'm gonna learn how to be a soldier, and then coming out like, I'm a killer. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. I wasn't expecting that. And good job, Army. They did their job. And that was the whole purpose of it. So and with the recruiting numbers that are down, what's going to happen in the future if we can't get our young to want to serve, especially in the Native community, when we know that sometimes getting them out is a better option than them staying where they are and possibly that bad path that kind of I talked about. I could be sitting in jail right now if I didn't make that decision to go in the military when I did. So thanks for letting me share that.
Thank you for sharing that too, and then just being that advocate, for mental wellness and, being able to get those resources you need, even if it's us, advocating for others too, or just to even know about it, So that is truly important. So thank you for saying that, King. Appreciate you.
Can I just add a little bit to that? Because what what she's saying is very important. Me working for the VA, I've been there for a year now, and the VA has completely reshuffled in its focus on a commitment to service to our veterans. And it's not only words, it's in money, grants, bills being passed here in the state of Montana. If you're a veteran, your tuition is waived at Montana State schools now. Stuff like that it doesn't get the press coverage. It's just that veteran who, went off the deep end and shot up something, but the VA is very committed. Veteran benefit services, veteran mental health services, veteran suicide services are all exploding. The VA is gone on a hiring frenzy to be able to meet the needs of the veterans that are applying for these benefits now with what was the bill that was just passed? The Agent Orange and diesel or the burn pits. That legislation. It's billions of dollars, and so it's out there. Spread the word. you know, because if we don't, you know, if we don't have that the safety net of the youngers coming into the services, you know, we all know what that means having served.
Okay, thank you. And I guess just to kind of save up on time, just for the audience members, is there any questions that you might have for any of the veterans or the panelists currently right now? And if not, I do have some other like questions to give out to the veterans too as well. Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay, well, if there's any questions, definitely put them on the chat if there's any. But I guess this next question, and this is for all the panelists. So what are your hopes for the future to better serve Native veterans in our nation? And I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but what, from your perspectives, what do you want to see more of? And I'll put that question in the chat too.
I'd love to jump in there right away, just because it's something I'm really super passionate about. And is for us to kind of, we got to come together. You know, there's got to be some kind of collective impact, I think, because there's just there's mostly disconnect going on. And it's the thing that's the worst part for me is that veterans aren't be able to engage in the services or benefits that they earn simply from not knowing enough about them. And at this day and age, in the information age and the technological advances and everything like that, that should be a barrier that we should be able to remove, the not knowing part of it. So that the proper outreach and the proper, support systems and things like that. One thing I've kind of come to this realization as I've kind of done this environmental scan across to see the who's who of doing this out there, coming to that sobering realization that there's not really anybody, there's not a collective group out there. Like, you know how you have the VFWs and the American Legions and the DAVs of the world, right? For us as Native vets, we don't really have anything like that right now for us to look to. There are some organizations out there, and some of them have national in their name and whatnot. But when you get to learn about them, it's more of kind of a super regional, localized impact that they have. So one thing I would encourage people, I'm on my way to NCAI next week, and I'm going there kind of specifically to seek out the leadership at NCAI and their Veterans Committee, because they claim, right, to be the largest advocacy group in the country for veterans as well. Well, I know within the last couple of years, I've been trying to throw my hat in there as an advocate to say, hey, I want to help. I know a little bit about stuff with vets. I can help, They don't even have a pathway for me to help. So then I asked them, well, what's your charter? Who's the leadership? When's the next meeting going on and whatnot? They have no answers. So, and that was for me, I always thought without doing this deep dive myself, I always thought that they were that group out there doing that advocacy at that level and policy change and all of that. And I'm kind of coming to learn that that's not really happening. So I would love to see all of us, in more of these panel discussions, maybe quarterly basis or something like that, with different various topics, important things that are going on. The Native American direct loan, let's do a deep dive in that. I've got the VA people to come and present on that. The thing I dropped in the chat on post-traumatic growth, I think that could be a game changer, because when it comes to the issue of trauma, the one thing about it that always scared the crap out of me is the hopelessness piece of it. I saw in my years serving homeless veterans, when people got that diagnosis, they start to do that self-fulfilling prophecy thing where like, well, I'm broken, I'm damaged goods, nobody's going to hire me. Then the depression and anxiety and everything just snowballs. So to me, I thought, man, there's got to be something else out there. I came across the topic of post-traumatic growth, and a light bulb moment kind of happened where I said, man, it's not the silver bullet to say like, hey, we got the silver bullet for PTSD or PTS at all, but it's another way of reframing that and looking at it through a different lens, the whole issue of trauma in itself. BJ put in the chat, one of the things that helped him as he transitioned is getting into the spirituality ceremonies and the life ways, right? And that's one of the domains of post-traumatic growth, is having that spiritual foundation, right? And it could be anything, right? To me, I support that. I'm a Christian, that's my belief system, and whatever the belief system is. But I really feel like that's a very much a missing aspect of people being able to handle and deal with trauma, is that spiritual grounding. So I hope maybe it's probably coming through that I'm really fired up about this topic and everything. And I'm open. I'll put my email in the chat for anybody who wants to connect, because I am trying to build some momentum here. I've been out to MHA Nation just the other day to do a workshop with the VA. We did a North Dakota Native American veteran stand down, the first of its kind ever in the state of North Dakota, last June, where all the tribes came to Spirit Lake, and I brought we brought all the VA services and supports there to present and connect. So I think there's a lot more that can be done on that front, and let's not sit back waiting for somebody else to do it. Let's do it. Let's connect directly. I yield my time. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else want to share? And if not, we'll end it with one last question. Okay. So this one's going to be a quick one just because we're over a minute, but this is just to kind of finish this up and everything. But just before that, audience members, thank you all for being here to be able to kind of like learn about veterans, more awareness and everything, and learn about our panelists' experiences and everything. So I appreciate you all. Panelists, thank you all for what you do. Again, you probably hear this all the time. Thank you for your service. Please don't say anything back to me because I know some people like it, some people don't, but I just want to say that. Salute you all. Appreciate you all. But this last question is how does it feel being a veteran now? So tell me in a couple of words or phrase of like, how does it feel being a veteran?
I would say I'm proud to be a veteran. I did have some relatives that, were kind of mentioning to me, like, why would you serve in a branch or in a military that, like, did what they did to our ancestors? And and I said, well, I didn't join for that. I joined because I wanted a challenge. I joined because of the camaraderie and the stories of that my father and coming from that family that I come from, and basically doing, like, now it's my turn to do my part type of thing, right? I don't dissuade folks from entering any type of military, but I don't sugarcoat it either, like I said. And I'm real with them. And I said, there's a reason why the Marines have the slogan of the few, the proud. I said, and that, again, it's definitely not a disrespect to any other branch. I know that we love to joke around with each other, but at the same time, I'm very thankful for anybody that serves, whether they're Native or not. Because without our veterans and our elders, I was taught at a young age that we don't know where we would be, And so I'm very proud of that. I know that I have some brothers that are not proud of what they did when they were in, and I understand that as well. But I also, I'm still thankful for the service of everybody.
So, yeah, I would say those who know me kind of, they're surprised when they hear I'm kind of an introvert. And my wife is always on me about trying to maybe get out of my shell a little bit more around in certain situations. But I think with her support, I've really, being proud of being a veteran. Anytime there's any kind of thing where, veterans, please stand up, or if she hears things, she's always like giving me that elbow and encouraging me and stuff. And, and it's definitely not that I've ever been ashamed of being a veteran. I just, it's just something that I did. And so I never really think it's anything amazing, but, my wife is pretty supportive, and again, she gives me the elbow and it's like, hey, that's you, stand up. So yeah, I'm really, that pride is building more, but it's a lot due to my wife who's sitting next to me here, having to listen to this.
You know. Anyone else want to share?
My girls are about to get home and it's going to get real loud in here.
Gotcha.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. And I feel honored and blessed to be a part of this. Please reach out to me if you need anything. I'm going to put my contact information in here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Julio.
No, thank you, Ty. Appreciate you. All right, then. I guess that is all. If that is it, so thank you all for being here. Appreciate you all. So I want to stop recording. So if there's any other last minute questions, I will be here. Everyone else can leave if you like. But thank you all for being here and being part of this celebration of veterans, and also, you know, this weekend as well, this Veterans Day. So happy Veterans Day to everybody. So appreciate you all for being here. So take care, everybody.
Happy birthday, Marines.